Hey, Sophia.
Hey, Emmanuel.
I'm super excited.
Why?
Because
Me too.
it's almost Halloween, and that means it's almost time to get scared, to get spooked.
Oh, it's the spooky season.
It's the spooky season.
It's the spooky season.
And I'm even more excited because there's another way for me to get spooked and also get a little bit of that superhero kick that I like all the time.
That's true. That's basically what our pod is entirely about.
Superheroes, and that is by watching the Hulu original series Hellstrom. Just in time for Halloween.
Yeah.
It's suspenseful, mysterious, scary, dark, chilling. It has dry humor and it's edgy. But there's also some superhero action in it.
All of this in one show?
All of this in one show. It's from Marvel Television. It's Hellstrom, based on some characters from comic books. And I don't have to wait anymore because it's now streaming. All episodes are streaming on Hulu right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, we got to go watch it.
Let's go right now.
Okay, let's go.
But their story didn't end there.
How could there have been only one? And he's back in business.
Is the worst idea in the history of bad ideas.
Part 2 is the final chapter in the violent history.
This time, it's personal.
25 years ago, you played a concert in front of the entire world. 1 month ago, you played in Barstow, California for 40 people, most of whom were there for $2 taco night. Bill and Ted, what have you got to say for yourselves?
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes.
You were supposed to unite the world and save reality as we know it.
Bill, we've spent our whole life trying to write the song that will unite the world. Why can't we just go to the future when we have written it?
Whoa! And take it from ourselves.
But isn't that stealing?
How is that stealing if we're stealing it from ourselves, dude?
No way!
How'd you like our song?
It's a little on the dark side, but you know, that's cool.
If you like time travel, music, princess wives, therapy, breaking and entering, phone booths, George Carlin, The Terminator, Jimi Hendrix, Louis Armstrong, Mozart, Ling Lun, Grom, the Caveman drummer, I can't read my handwriting, David Grohl, and death, then you'll like the sequel we're talking about this week. We're talking about Bill and Ted Face the Music, another sequel 30 years awaiting, or maybe even more. I don't know. Welcome to Revenge Sequel, the podcast just about sequels. My name's Emmanuel.
Hey, I'm Andrew.
Hey, what's up? It's John.
And returning all the way back from the September episode of Revenge of the Sequel, it's Brent, our winter friend.
Hey. Oh, winter friend. I like that. I like that moniker. Yeah, thanks for inviting me back, man. I'm excited to talk about this movie.
Some would say that as the leaves change outside in color, from the green to the orange, so does your taste in film, because Indiana Jones, well, actually, I don't know, is it pretty similar to this movie? Bill and Ted? I don't know.
They're like on similar wavelengths of camp, I feel like. And even, I haven't even thought about this until right now, but like there are also sequels done 15 plus years after the original, right? Like Indiana Jones was what, 16 or 17?
Yeah, since Last Crusade, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Lega sequels, right? Isn't that what they've like given those the name of? But
I don't think we've ever said that. Lega sequels. That's good. That's good stuff.
I read it in some fucking like IndieWire article or something, I'm sure. But I kind of like that because it's like, yeah, you take an entire legacy of a franchise and characters, and then you kind of try to, you know, all like make something all encompassing in like a new movie, you know. Sometimes it's better than others.
I'm always so nervous, Brent. Are you ever nervous when you see a Lega sequel? Because sometimes I think, well, I don't know, can that actor, Keanu Reeves, does he remember his character from 40 years ago?
I mean, it depends. It depends on the franchise. It's like we've talked about Star Wars plenty on this pod, or with you guys, I guess, on other podcasts and stuff. But like with that one, I'm definitely always nervous because I have an idea of what Star Wars is to me and what the characters mean to me, and it's always like, are they gonna like fuck this up? And the answer is yes, usually.
Yeah.
Oh
my! When it comes to that franchise, you're totally right. Yes.
Yeah. But I guess usually I'm not too nervous unless it's like one of those really close, kind of like franchises I grew up with. Like I wasn't, for example, for Bill and Ted, I wasn't super precious about the first two movies. When I saw this one, I was just kind of like, yeah, let's check it out. And then I was really surprised by this one. So there might be some hot takes. Got a hot take warning indicator on this episode. Yeah, I think I got some hot takes on this one.
So I want to ask you, Andrew, and then I'm sure, John, you have a similar story, but when did y'all see the first couple Bill and Ted movies? I don't think you were alive, I think, for either of them to see them theatrically.
I think, when was the first one? What year? 93? The first one was like 89, I think. The first one was 89. Yeah.
Oh, shit. So the second one was when?
91, I think.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So yeah, for sure I wasn't alive. I did not go see these in theaters. I wish maybe I could eventually sometime in the future in this movie's logic, but I remember seeing it obviously at a young age, probably a rerun on TV or something. And I remember the second one a whole lot more than the first one. And the second one freaked me the fuck out because it starts off with them like pulling their mouths, the robots out of their mouths and stuff. And
hell.
Hell. And
scared
also
the shit out of me.
Even the good robot versions of them, I remember them creeping me out because they have the big lights on their eyes and stuff like that. So a lot of weird camera work and, and stuff like that. So I remember the second one a whole lot more for sure. And I remember it freaking me out. And then that's about it. Like I remember like it being a thing. I remember that they were time travelers. I remember always kind of comparing them to Doctor Who because I became a Doctor Who fan and then ended up finding out that they use a police call box, but an American version of them to time travel. And so, it wasn't until this movie specifically where I was kind of itching for new movies, there was nothing being released because theaters were closed and stuff like that. So I was just willing to watch any new movie that came out. And so I ended up popping this one in thinking it wasn't going to spark this crazy nostalgia for the first two for me. But after I watched this one, it ended up being the best movie that I've seen so far. And to say that, when you're going up against like Christopher Nolan, I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty big.
Yeah, I think that we're going to definitely talk about the times we're living in and how this film kind of goes against the face of just what all the negative stuff happening this year is. But John, I'll let you answer the question. Are you a Bill and Ted stan?
I don't know if I was a stan. I think what Drew said like is the same like experience that I do. I remember a lot of the second movie mainly because like I remember that just long hallways and like zoom ins that like happen like super quick. I remember a very comedic version of death like from that movie. So I wasn't but I kind of knew about that since a young age. So like I kind of knew that Keanu Reeves was in two things back when I was a kid. He was in this movie called Bill and Ted, which eventually, I found out it was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And he was the dude from Speed. Eventually later he became obviously Neo from The Matrix. And then obviously, recently John Wick. But those are the two movies that I remember him from. And then, every now and then, on Fox, they would show, fucking Bram Stoker's Dracula. And you're like, oh yeah, he's in that shit too. But mainly, yeah, like I wasn't a giant Bill and Ted fan. I kind of knew what the movies were, and I the first one I had kind of seen after I saw the second one. They're all like very goofy movies, basically of their time, late 80s, early 90s. They have like what Brent said earlier. They kind of have a camp to them that's charming. The second one is a little rewatching these two recently to prepare for this podcast. The second one is pretty fucking weird, like in tone. But yeah, I guess that's my experience with the franchise. It wasn't, again, like what Drew said. I mean, we kind of were. I wasn't digging the trailers for this third Bill and Ted movie. I thought, like, when you're watching the trailer, it looks like Keanu Reeves definitely isn't that person anymore. Like, he doesn't smile naturally, like the way he did back in the 80s or something like that.
Weird, man. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. And hearing him say dude and do something that isn't very serious, like, you know, and not stone face, because, like, you know, all of his movies recently are all action flicks where he's like the ultimate badass, basically. And he's not that in this movie. And it kind of showed in the trailers. I didn't really dig the trailers too much. I actually thought it was going to be stupid. It looked like a movie where it was a bunch of first takes. Like, you kind of like, you know, you shoot something and the actors try their best, but only like just one take. And then, like, that's what it looked like to me. And then in watching it, I was very surprised. It was, it's probably my favorite movie, like, that I've seen, favorite new movie that I've seen so far.
Yeah, there's something really kind about this movie in a weird way that I feel differently. I don't think I've seen a movie this whole year that just let me enjoy it, basically, without having to relate it to anything going on in reality, which is odd. But Brent, I'll ask you the same question. When did you watch your first Bill and Ted?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because, like Drew said, like, I didn't even really remember the first one, seeing like the first one as a kid, but I definitely remember the second one because it scared the shit out of me. I was like a God-fearing kid growing up, going to church and stuff. And so, like, when they go to hell, like that, and then What Dreams May Come are two movies that like straight up, like, I think gave me nightmares. And so I had that weird connection to the second Bill and Ted. Otherwise had no other takeaway other than like, oh yeah, those are like Keanu's old silly comedies, until like I guess it was a couple years now, is when I was like staying home on paternity leave. I was like, oh, they put the Bill and Ted's on Amazon. Let me like rewatch those again. Since I have like no memories of them hardly at all. And then I like watched them, I think both in a day, because they're like 90 minutes each. They're really quick. And then I kind of came to the conclusion that they're like bad. They're like bad movies, but they're like silly fun, I guess. It's like there aren't a ton of jokes that like really make me crack up in them. Like, they're not, I don't think, great comedies. I don't want to just like shit talk them, because like they're their own like kind of special like time capsule, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I was like, yeah, those, like, I'm glad I watched them for sure. Like, they were like a silly good time. But I think just like my expectations for this third movie could not have really been like more upended, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because like I didn't expect anything of it. I was like, this seems like a pretty bad idea. I guess maybe it'll be okay because, I don't know, maybe it'll come out good because like the screenwriters have been like trying to get it made. They like have been working on the script for a decade or more. So maybe like they're passionate about it. It might be interesting. And then like I see it and I'm like, this is the best one. I don't know. I think it's the best Bill and Ted movie. It's like the most emotional. It's like the kindest and like most earnest entry. And yeah, it's just like a great time. I watched it, not to get like too like into bummer territory here, but like I was literally watching it as I was like finding out about the Chadwick Boseman stuff. And so I was like getting bummed out because I was like reading about all that, seeing all these like tributes to him on like Twitter and stuff. And then I was like watching this movie and like, holy shit, is this movie just like a lighthouse of like goodness that I like really needed. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's like my history with it.
I think that's perfect because it leads us to our thoughts on this movie. We're going to go to it in detail, but I want to give everyone a chance to just give us, I don't want to say a review, but your thoughts on Bill and Ted Face the Music. Definitely something that was originally planned to have a theatrical release, but I feel like perfectly instead came out during quarantine where people could watch it at home and maybe with the focus of all of film and new entertainment kind of not having to look elsewhere. If this came out in the middle of a summer in between Marvel movies or at the same time as Tenet or something like that, it probably would have been buried, just honestly. Except for diehard fans, this wouldn't be the focus of basically every film review podcast and blog for the last week or two. So I'm kind of happy that it happened this way because everyone's watching it, which is nice. But Andrew, what did you think about Bill and Ted Face the Music?
I think this movie, I think what Brent said is true, is that this is the best Bill and Ted movie. I think that there's not a lot of trilogies in general that are entirely good, because I ended up backtracking and watching the first two again, and I dug them. Not as much as this one for sure, but I dug them a little bit more than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to have kind of like repressed memories, that it was going to freak me out about stuff, but I ended up liking how weird the second one was, and the first one I just thought was super kind of, again, like this one, lighthearted, fun. It's just kind of rampage through time for their book report and stuff like so. Very low stakes, but also I can appreciate on how they almost had nothing, and they kind of made this big movie out of almost nothing. And that's the way this one feels. It's got the same kind of tone and feeling as the original ones, where like it's very small scale. They just end up going back to meet different versions of themselves, and meanwhile, their daughters go back in time and do what they did in the first one, where they gather a group of elite musicians from time and stuff like that. So it's kind of like and then you bring back Dead, so it's kind of like a mix of both the first and the second one. But also, I don't think it was intentionally meant to set up a sequel, so to speak, but I want to see a sequel so bad with their daughters, for sure, is because I think the daughters stole the show for me personally. I thought they were so awesome in like, you can't help but smile every time they're on screen because of how well they play the parts of their dad. And so that girl from Ready or Not, she's so funny, and even the girl who plays Keanu's daughter, man, she's got his mannerisms down to like a T from the original stuff, even more so
or
than
a B.
Yeah, nice. Well, she's even more so, like, I feel like that Keanu, more than Keanu is this time around, because he is kind of a little bit more toned down. But man, I had so much fun with this movie, and I think I've watched it like 4 times already. And it's one of these things where, like, man, it's just so addicting, and it makes me have a deeper appreciation for the franchise as a whole. And we've been lucky enough to have 3 really stellar franchises that have to deal with time travel. I hope it's more than a trilogy. I hope it keeps going with the daughters.
John, what did you think about this new movie?
Oh, I loved it. It's like the way Drew said, I've been watching it repeatedly. I kind of liken the feel goodness of this flick to kind of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I know is a weird comparison, but like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a movie that, like, for some reason is a feel good movie to me, and I was able to. It's basically rewatchable like crazy. So like I remember last year putting that movie on, or like just watching it in theaters multiple times back when there was. When there were theaters around, you watching it multiple times in theaters, and then whenever the Blu-ray came out, just having it on all the time. I feel the same way for this flick. This flick is like so like nice and so unapologetically goofy. You can't just like not like smile through at least the entire flick. It's really funny because like at one point it's I don't know, I wouldn't want to say parody, but like to see Keanu Reeves do something like this, like so lighthearted compared to like breaking a neck with a book or something, in another movie.
John Wick.
Yeah, it's like it's awesome. And then like Drew brought up the daughters Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne, I think that's their names.
Yeah.
They play Billy and Thea, and like those people like or those 2 girls like are like awesome. Like they play the characters better than Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves do. And then just getting like comedians around, and even having like Kid Cudi in the movie is like it's super duper silly, and it's a great time.
It felt like a Rick and Morty episode a little bit, which I'm sure Rick and Morty got a lot from this specifically.
Bill and Ted series. Yeah,
I thought this movie was a whole lot of fun. I don't necessarily. I like the Bill and Ted movies. I don't necessarily seek them out. I'm not a huge Bill and Ted fan, I guess. I'm not a Ted head. I'm not a B-Ted head, a BT head. But I did find myself really enjoying this film. I feel like there was a stronger focus on the relationships of Bill and Ted, their wives, their kids, each other. And I think that's why this movie worked for me. I feel like a lot of the other Bill and Ted movies focus a lot on the time travel aspect, which is fantastic. Napoleon. Those are fun things.
So
and
great.
in this movie, it kind of took a back seat in a weird way, even though it's filled in the movie. But apart from them amassing this team of famous musicians, it's not necessarily the heart and soul of the film. And I think, to Andrew's point, it is the daughters. I think they are what make this movie grounded. And I think that at the end, when you find out they are the real heroes of this film and maybe even the franchise, I think that's a really special moment. I feel like if I was a Ted head, a BT head, I don't know if that's good. We'll workshop it.
BT head, yeah. That's what they call themselves. It just feels real nice. Yeah.
Let me know what y'all call yourselves. But if I was one of them, I also think I would gain such a uber level of appreciation. George Carlin is in this movie. A lot of the things from the other two, Death is in this movie. So those are definitely things that would make me feel a little bit even more appreciative towards the fact that this movie was made. And I want to ask you all this. Do you think this movie was made because there's a Keanu renaissance happening right now?
Keanu
Sans. And he helped kind of, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like that's the reason why this movie even got made.
I think so. Yeah, I think I can't speak to any specific thing, but I feel like that's what I remember reading when like this finally got the green light. They hired the director fucking 8 years ago.
Yeah.
What's his name? Dean Parasot, I think.
Yeah,
the guy.
Galaxy
Quest. Yeah, but like one of the best comedies ever made. Galaxy Quest. Like truly. What's up?
I was gonna say,
John, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, sorry. I was, because the talking over during Zoom is weird. Fun fact, and then I'll let you go on, Brent. Dean Parasot was married to Sally Minky. Sally Minky, who passed away. Yeah, Tarantino's editor.
Wow.
He was her husband.
That was fun.
That's sad.
Yeah, whoops, my bad. Anyway,
it's all good.
Go on.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. No, it definitely feels like Keanu was. I remember him always saying like, yeah, we really would love to do it, but like all the pieces have to fall into place, and those pieces ended up being like his like fourth resurgence as like everybody's favorite human being, and like his huge John Wick franchise. I think they were like, yeah, we'll throw like 30 million at this. Like that's not the end of the world. Like we'll fund this. Like they probably looked at like the DVD sales and rental sales and stuff. That's something I wanted to mention too, actually. Like in terms of like this being like trilogies, that the final movie is the best one. It's so rare, right? It doesn't happen. I feel like it doesn't happen.
Star Wars, the
Skywalker. Yeah, the sequel.
The Rise of Skywalker.
It retroactively makes them all better, just like that trilogy. No, but it's funny because it's almost, I think of like Game of Thrones as a comparison, even though that's not a movie, sure, but it's like I look at the final season and like what that did to the show and how that show has ostensibly been deleted from our minds, I feel like. And like I'm not trying to throw just like, too much shade on Game of Thrones. Like I loved it while I was on and watching it and stuff, but I feel like this movie is going to have this really interesting impact where people see this one or watch them all the way through, and it's like this such a good, like feel good, well executed ending where they're going to be like, this whole fucking trilogy is like one of the best, which is kind of how I think about the movies now, even though the first two are kind of like, to me, they're kind of slight, I guess. They're not like amazing, but like they're a lot of fun still. So I think this one's going to do a lot of good for this trilogy, and I guess if it continues on after this, yeah.
Yeah, I think of the first Bill and Ted as being personal, and it's a smaller movie. Definitely, it was the first one. The second one I felt was, they definitely tried to expand the world. And with the third movie, you'd think, well, are they just going to go small again? Or are they going to keep going down this path? And instead, we get this movie, which is even more and more ambitious and beyond what I expected from a Bill and Ted movie. So it's really surprising, and it ended up helping out. yeah, overall. But yeah, I don't know. What do y'all want to talk about first? Oh, I guess I brought this up earlier, but the two actors who play Bill and Ted, I can't remember the other guy's name, so I won't say Keanu Reeves.
Alex Winter.
Yeah. How do you think they did stepping back into those roles? Andrew, I know you're leaning back, maybe getting a BJ from a Ghostbusters style. But what did you think about those two main characters coming back?
So I was a little worried because I remember this being a rumor for a long time about like, hey, they're going to do another Bill and Ted. And I just didn't think that they could fit the roles anymore. Like, not just Winter, but Keanu also. I thought that he had grown so much that it was going to be tough for him to kind of, and it wasn't the exact same for sure as he was in the first two. But definitely a little bit more toned down. But age will do that to you, I guess. And even in the story, it's been forever. But I was really worried about Alex because I thought that what was the last thing he was on, type of thing, and like how easy is it going to be to get back into the groove, and is it going to be intimidating to work with Keanu, or is it Keanu going to be hold his nose up a little higher now that he's part of everything else and stuff like that. So there was a lot of things that I thought were going to be an issue, but they actually both knocked it out of the park. It's like, I guess, riding a bike. I guess they just maybe kept a good relationship going through time and stuff like that, but I thought they did better than expected. This movie had all the reasons to suck, for sure. And again, even trilogies, usually, Spider-Man 3, Godfather 3, there's all these super big trilogies and properties that end up botching it usually. And it was really cool to not have that.
Yeah, I thought I was even more impressed with, like, Keanu was solid, like, for sure. He was... They both just slipped right back into it and it felt natural. I was really surprised with Alex Winter. I thought Alex Winter was like great as Bill again. And I even watched today during work. I put on the first Bill and Ted while I was working, just kind of having it on in the background. And it is funny because like they are a little more low key in the third movie, but it is a thing that I remember kind of being a little concerned about when I heard about this movie. Is like, what do Bill and Ted look like when they're 45 or 50? Like, what do those guys act like, I guess? And it just like, I didn't even question it when it started. Like, and that's a testament to the writing being great too. But yeah, it was just like, I was just like, oh, third Bill and Ted. It opens with that great wedding scene, which I think is just so, this movie, I think, easily has the best jokes of the series. I think it's the funniest. I would say. I don't have the second one as fresh in my mind, but this one like made me laugh a lot. And and I love that opening like wedding scene. I thought they just like re-entered like as Bill and Ted just perfectly.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that this movie isn't just I already talked about how it's so much about relationships, but it's about how that changes, not just all comedy about being older. Because I mean, it's not just a bunch of them being like, "Oh, yeah, I'm old now. Isn't this funny?" Yeah, or like, I can't do this one thing I used to do. Isn't that hilarious, everyone?
Yeah,
like it found comedy elsewhere. John, were you going to say something?
No, I was just kind of adding to.
Well, it sounds like you were.
Well, it was just about like because we did something similar, the season with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which is kind of more or less, those characters are kind of, I want to say maybe I'm not sure if Smith intended that or not, but they're kind of like, another Bill and Ted in a way, like they're kind of inspired by it. I think at one point, like in Chasing Amy, they even said like, that's like Cheech and Chong meets Bill and Ted. And those two guys, when, returning for that movie, there's some getting used to, and not in a bad way. Cause like that movie is great. I love Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. But seeing, I guess it like, what I'm trying to say is like, it's, I was nervous about that. About this movie, Bill and Ted Face the Music, because of that. Like, Jay didn't kind of, there's a very different side to Jay that you see in that movie that I don't think you ever, like, it's definitely not the same as the first one, or as the first, incarnations of that character. And for Bill and Ted, Winter and Reeves just, like what Brent said, just basically slipped in, like, like if no time had passed at all, basically. You're right. There is like, there's those, because they're older and like, they they have to act a little different. There's little things like that. You kind of notice the little things like Keanu Reeves doesn't smile as much as he used to, like just in general. Yeah, like and
yeah.
But Alex Winter is actually, I would say, like my favorite of the two in this movie because he actually they both look like they're just having a really good time. Like it's like getting your friends back together and kind of like just shooting the shit, and that's just basically this entire movie.
And you can tell that they really enjoyed not just going into those two characters specifically, but meeting the kind of crazier, different alternate versions of themselves. Did y'all have one that stuck out to you? I love the two that were in Dave Grohl's house. That was, I think, the funniest. But we met prison version, I think, right?
There were at least a few. I think. Yeah, upon rewatching it again today, it's tough. It's between those two and the prison yard, like ridiculous, like roided out versions of them. It's so funny. It's just like and it's so much fun to watch because it's just like you just get the sense that on set everybody was like laughing and having a good time. Yeah. They were like, we're just like back with our friends. I'm sure the writers who. It was the same two writers for all three movies. I'm sure they were like on set all the time and just like having a good time. The Dave Grohl's house like misdirect is so funny because when I was first watching it, I was like, I don't think this is how that's going to work out. And then like you find out that they're full of shit, and then like Keanu's like chugging vodka. Yeah, and they kind of address and they. It's funny because like in this movie they address like. You don't even drink, and like that kind of supports the theory that like I feel like people like may have thought these guys were like stoneheads,
right?
Or like stoners, I guess. But like I don't know, like they've always seemed too pure for that, I guess.
You brought up a really good point. This movie is chasing a PG-13, which means they can't show marijuana, even though that they probably smoke a ton. Like it's one of the underlying things of how chill they are, how cool they are.
I kind of don't. I kind of don't think they have ever done drugs. That's like that's kind of my take on them.
Let me Google them in the County Registrar of Drug Offenders.
Yeah, in San Dimas.
San Dimas, California.
San Dimas warrant record. But I don't know. Yeah, it is also funny because the original two movies, they are a little. I could see more for those first two movies because they're a little meaner.
Yeah,
they're a little meaner. They say some like cancelable stuff now in today's lens.
Why don't you say some of those words? Why don't you call us some of those words?
It's obviously but
he did say it, by the way. But you have to go on Patreon to hear it.
Yeah, I did say it multiple times.
It's a motif, actually. I was kind of like, I don't want to spend too much time on that cancelable word. But I was very surprised in watching, because we watched the first two back to back like a couple of days ago. Not back to back, but one on one day and then another one on another day. Mm-hmm. And the second time that word is used in the second movie, it's a callback to the first. And I was just like, oh shit, like they repeated it. Like, it was fucking crazy.
They say dickweed a lot. Dickweed.
Yeah, dickweed is obviously a thing.
See? Yeah. There is weed in the movies, and
it's just in their dicks.
It's in their dicks. Wow.
But you do see them. It's funny because I guess the impression that they give off like this stoner, vibe. I kind of, you kind of think that, especially coming from the first movie, because in the first movie they're literally teenagers, like they're about to fail their book report. I think in the second movie, you see them drink beer, if I'm not mistaken, at one point. Like, they have like a Miller Lite or some shit.
There's something. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. They're college students. They're like supposed to be all, their motto is literally party on, dudes. So like, it's kind of like, yeah, it makes sense that they kind of partied a little bit, but I love the fact that like, that in this one it's a thing that like future Ted drinks like a fuck ton and they acknowledge it.
Well, it's pretty funny. It's funny because even future, Bill still has a problem with it. He's like, dude, he's off the ass. He's off the vodka.
Yeah.
He's off the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them meeting their alternate selves because it gives you a chance to kind of have that introspection, I guess, for them as they're searching for the song, like the song that will save the universe. Yeah, Andrew.
Well, yeah, and it even gives you like range also because you're like, oh, Keanu's not going to get as animated, anymore. So when you see him in these other roles, when they have the British accents, and shit like that, or even the muscular one where they kind of beat up the robot Rick and Morty style.
Keanu gets to make amends for his terrible accent in Dracula.
Oh boy!
And he gets to give a slightly better accent in this.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Well, let's talk about the other characters in this film before we talk about the darters. Let's talk about the wives. I feel like they had they're recast. They're not the same actors who were in the second film, right? But partially, I feel like they were periphery in the second movie, and in this one, they're in this movie a lot. And one of the reasons why Bill and Ted want to fix their relationships, I think one of the funniest moments was just the comedy that happened in their therapy where they're doing it together.
Jillian Bell, dude. Jillian Bell is such an underrated, like, comedic actor. She's so funny and everything.
Yeah, and then at the end, of course, we also see that's they help in the end, but also one of the reasons why is because they see Bill and Ted and see how much they actually care. I thought that they were really good. What are some other? Are there any other characters that stuck out to you other than the daughters, which we'll talk about at length here in a bit?
I actually found since we're talking about the princesses, I actually found them to be really, especially because the actresses are, they're different this time around, like you mentioned. I think Jayma Mays plays Joanna, Bill's wife, and then Erin Hayes plays, Ted's wife. And I think
Children's Hospital and stuff. One of them's I recognize from Children's Hospital.
One of them's from, I think, Children's Hospital. I think Erin Hayes could be that one. And then Jayma Mays is actually
from Glee.
From Glee. And she's also she was in Epic Movie, I think, one of those, scary movie spinoffs. So she has comedic chops there. They were awesome. It's funny to see these characters from the first two movies, kind of evolve into Earth or modern time characters.
It is. I thought that was funny. I like what they did with them. I still feel like there's kind of a whole short film or a whole other film about their journey, through time, because we didn't really see, we saw them appear at the same ones, but I feel like there's a couple of stops that we didn't see that would maybe make really, really funny, deleted scenes or bloopers or something. Guys, we're forgetting what I think is one of the breakout characters in this film, and his name is Dennis Caleb McCoy.
I knew you were going to say that.
He's
Anthony
the guy from
fucking Kerrigan, man.
Yeah, isn't he in Barry? I haven't seen Barry. Apparently, he's a dude from Barry.
Barry is maybe the best show on TV. It's incredible, and he is hysterical. He is so funny on that show, unbelievably funny.
I didn't know I've seen Barry. I didn't know that was him in this movie, but it makes sense now. He's really, really funny.
Because he just has his American, his normal accent.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's so funny, and he's in Barry, he has a lot of funny line deliveries, and he gets a lot of funny dialogue. In this movie, a lot of his humor is his physical acting, him reacting to I just killed 12 people. None of them were Bill and Ted, and just kind of having little freakouts. He's like a robot, but he has concern and
he's super insecure. It's really funny because he keeps one of the things is that he keeps repeating his name. I'm Dennis McCoy. I'm Dennis Caleb McCoy. Hi. He has to mention it every time he says something. He's like, "I." Yeah. Well, my name is Dennis McCoy.
He's bummed out. He gets bummed out in the movie.
Yeah,
but it's a real hard bum.
Yeah, and then he goes to hell, and they're like, "It doesn't make sense that you're here." But I guess the joke is that when he was created, he was given a soul, right? So that's why he's also like feeling so much and stuff like that. I guess that's, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much about it.
Well, you just brought up Hell. There's a character there who I guess is there for nostalgic purposes as well, but a character that they spent a lot of time with earlier in Bill and Ted.
Yeah,
Death.
William Sadler returns as Death in this one. He's actually way. Rewatching the second one, I guess I thought like he spoke more, or I guess did more in the second movie. It's pretty funny because he's better, I guess, in this movie than he was in the second one. But he's awesome. William Sadler's been in like a ton of fucking movies. Shawshank Redemption, Die Hard 2.
He's such a good like character actor, man. Yeah. They give him a lot of stuff to do. Like that had to be part of the reason that like all the actors wanted to do this movie too, right? Is because like I bet the script is similar to the movie. It's like they read it and they were like, oh, we all get nice, funny, meaningful parts in this movie, and like he gets a really, really good part too, where like he enters in the last 30 minutes, but like he's the reason. Or he's like, the reason they get out of hell. Like he's a plot device, and he's also like an emotional kind of like turning point, I guess, for the story too.
Yeah,
because he's not just a cameo.
No, he's not. It's pretty cool. Yeah, because Bill and Ted, I think you're right. He is an emotional high point because it's them facing their past basically at that point, because they apparently had a falling out like after the second movie, and it's them kind of making amends with death. It's pretty funny to just say it out loud, but they're making amends with death just so they can get out of hell like again, which that happened in the second one.
Yeah, there's a restraining order that they're talking about. But let's talk about there are the two, I think, stars. Andrew said they stole the show. Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne, who play Thea and Billy. They have an adventure on their own to get the world's best musicians of all time ever in the history of all time. Let's spend some time and talk about their performance. What are some of the things? I think we already talked about some of the similarities that Bridget was able to bring to the Keanu Reeves character a little bit. But what are some things you took away from their portrayals?
They didn't get Tom York, and Tom York is the greatest musician fucking ever.
I think their arc was the most fun to watch for me, because it's funny because their arc is kind of a Force Awakens thing where it's like new characters in the same roles, in the same archetypes, doing kind of the same plot with some alterations. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's just so much fun. It was just so much fun being like, oh, who are they going to go to next? Like they got Hendrix, then they went back to Louis Armstrong to get Hendrix. And I loved how that pieced together. Maybe like my favorite moment, because of how like earnest and like I play guitar, like I'm a musician, I guess. I put in air quotes because I don't want to sound like a dickhead. But it was just so fucking entertaining and like nice to see like Jimi Hendrix shred with Mozart.
Yeah,
like that scene was just so much fun to watch, and like the actors playing the guys like did a great job. So yeah, I like their arc a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably why I appreciate this movie too. Just to go off on a small little tangent, is because like I've kind of grown closer to music these last couple of months. I've been a musician in the past too. I'm going to use the also air quotes musician. But in like during quarantine and then starting a job at a music shop, I've kind of gotten closer to music, and I love that this movie is a giant homage basically to music. All three movies really are. I mean, more so the first and this one, but
the
yeah, it is
of music.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The strength of music. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah, definitely. And I think it's awesome that this, that's probably why I enjoyed this flick too. Cause again, that scene where he's jamming with Mozart, and it's like, there's something really, really cool about it, but also very silly too. Cause you even see Mozart's face, like reacting to a fucking guitar that he's never heard. Yeah. And, and then hearing, like the dude who played Louis Armstrong. Let me see if the actor's name is
that
here.
That guy's a comedy dude, right? I recognized.
He's really good.
Yeah, I love him. He was a great Louis Armstrong. I've been watching like Ken
Burns'
Jazz and like
Jeremiah Kraft.
Yeah, he was awesome because of the way, just the mannerisms, the way he makes his face, like the way, and the voice that Louis Armstrong, that the impression that he was doing, basically, it's pretty great.
John, go ahead and try to do that voice.
And it sounds like
I see skies of blue.
John, why don't you
pretty good.
use that voice to say that word that no one wants
that
to
I
say.
said earlier on the
no.
Double cancel.
What's crazy is that Louis Armstrong always needed. Louis Armstrong's voice always made my eyes water because not in a sentimental way. It's just like the guy always needed a good cough. Like he
I thought it was like the emotionality of his voice. I was like, yeah, dude, same. But it's like
he just had like a raspy throat, and like this guy kind of nails the voice, but like you just kind of want him to cough and hawk up a loogie or something.
Yeah. Oh, wow, John's really coming for Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong coming at you.
Rest in power. John's coming for you.
After Mozart, I was like, okay, who are they going for next? I'm really curious to see that. And then they go like 6,000 BC after Mozart? Or no, they go to China in like the 1400s and they get, I forgot her name.
Ling
Lun.
Yeah.
Her and the drummer.
A flautist of legend.
Right, yeah.
Okay, see, that's interesting because like those two, like her and then the ancient drummer lady are like, those are two. I assume that's not even based on any person that they know about, right? Like it seems like
you don't know about Grom's SoundCloud.
I don't have her greatest hits records now.
It's a rock.
I appreciated how much they appreciated music. I guess like it really does feel like a love letter to the power of music and like the history of it. That it's like you get Jimi Hendrix because he's like a modern hero, but then like you also go back thousands of years to get like the originator of like rhythm
Chinese music, yeah, and like that Grom thing, and it's funny. I think there's a review that about this movie that said that this is a better tribute to music than Yesterday was. That movie Yesterday.
Ooh, I didn't see Yesterday.
That was a tribute to the Beatles.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like the whole. I mean, because that's also about the power of the music of the Beatles too. I mean, a little bit more specifically the Beatles, but
I'm a Beach Boys guy, baby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pet Sounds.
But it's someone called that, and having seen both movies, I kind of because Yesterday has its own problems, I guess, but this one does actually have it's a little bit more of a wholesome tribute to that music. Yeah.
John, what are the problems? Are you talking about the fact that the film was stolen from the actual original writer?
Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
Is that one of the problems?
Is that true? I hadn't done that much research onto it. That's crazy.
Somebody wrote it, and then this other, and I can look up this person who's like an established writer, read it and was like, "Wow, I'd love to help make it."
This idea.
No one's gonna make it if your name is on it. And he was like, "Oh, okay."
He's like, "Give it to me."
Flip flop, baby. Andrew, you wanted to talk about music. Are you also going to say you're a musician? God.
Well, it's funny because, air quotes, I am. But I play the trumpet, and so seeing Satchmo on there was pretty badass. But not what I was going to say. What I was going to say was I like that, like they were talking about, like the homage or, it being a music movie. I think it's really cool on how they're kind of facing the music in two ways, where it's kind of like literally and metaphorically, like they're kind of they hit that writer's block that every musician who tries to make it, they're trying to make that one song and they can't really make that song. They've been beating their heads like on the wall for decades and stuff like that. But also them coming to terms with the facing metaphorically facing the music of the point that they are in their lives, accepting the role as fathers and being a little bit more independent from themselves, so that way they can love their wives and stuff like that. So, and even having their daughters kind of save the day, where they end up finding out that it's not, they weren't looking at the right Preston and Logan, and they're the ones who I love how smart the daughters are compared to the Bill and Ted in the first two. They're kind of dumb. They're about to fail the history course or something like that, or they're flunking out of school. They're in class answering it easy questions and that they don't know. But anyway.
The daughters are like super educated in music. Like the references that they were pulling, I was like searching to be like, is that a real theremin player? And it is, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So they made the daughters like, yeah.
For sure. Well, and even like when they're talking about like the physics of it all with Kid Cudi, because Kid Cudi's the only one who understands all the science behind everything. And so they even stand toe to toe with him when they're, kind of talking about what needs to be done and in that trippy sense. And so I like that, because you can't just redo the characters for verbatim or whatever, exactly as they were. So it's really cool that they kind of bring an evolution to it, but also stay really, really true to the feel of B&T.
B&T head, there it is again. Well, before we talk about our final thoughts, let's talk about the future of Bill and Ted. We kind of alluded to the fact that this is kind of it felt like a really special thing that happened and the stars aligned, even the success and the fact that people are watching it while they're stuck at home. But what do you all think the future for Bill and Ted is, or do you think this is just a really good finale?
To me, this feels like the perfect finale, and I just don't know if I don't know. I could see them making movies with the daughters in the future, but I also don't know if movies like that, like this, are ever going to be made ever again, really. I don't know. I just think that, like, I don't know. It's like the world's different now. It's like the middle's cut out. This is definitely a movie in the middle. But it has a nostalgia factor. I mean, it's made at the box office, which is not, including streaming. It's made $2.5 million. It cost 25. That doesn't look great. I hope it made millions on streaming. I'm sure it made a few at least, but I don't know. It also just feels like such a perfect conclusion, like a conclusion I didn't even know was possible, I think, for like the Bill and Ted series, because the movies are so silly and so goofy. I never really viewed those as like, I don't know, like really emotionally earnest or like moving movies. But this one like was, I don't know, like made me tear up near the end. And I was just like shocked by that. I was like, oh, I really care about these characters. And I think that they're really killing this finale. I'd definitely watch more if they made them, but I think this like totally works. God, hell yeah. Is that a GIF?
Yeah.
Of the finale? Yeah, that's great. It's so epic, man. Like them like guitar soloing. I think like I'll talk about the finale, I guess, more in the wrapping up the final thoughts and stuff. But it's great.
John, Andrew, y'all think there's another sequel? You think we'll be back here 30 years from now talking about it?
I hope it's not too long, I think I would even be okay with like someone signing up a show where they're like, hey, the girls are going to get their own show, or, something like that. There's a lot of streaming services now that desperately need content to fill their
But there's none better than Hulu. Would you say that, Andrew?
Yes, Hulu. But I appreciate your green light. I'm
a voodoo man myself.
Let's just say I also appreciate the green light.
But and so I think you can explore possibilities. Even if it was like an animated one, I'd be okay with that. That would be really cool. I know a lot of streaming services and companies are kind of switching over to animated because it's easier to do it remotely and stuff like that. But I think they could do it if they wanted to. I think you can have cameos by Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, but it doesn't necessarily have to be about them anymore. So I think they even kind of set up their supporting cast too, where like Caleb Dennis McCoy could be like their death, kind of, or they, you know, they have George Carlin's daughter in that Rufus's daughter. He's basically their new Rufus, and instead of having the phone booth, they have that egg. And so I think there are, you know, there's something there for sure. And I like them enough in this one where I was like, man, you stole the show from Keanu Reeves, and it's Keanu Reeves, you know. And so
them traveling with Dennis is such a good idea. I hope somebody out there, some executive somewhere out there is like, that could be a really fun, like, thing. Kind of expensive maybe, because it's a lot of sci-fi bullshit, but I mean, I don't know. It's great.
I tell you, there's something there, man. I swear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's start. John, you can start wrapping up our episode with your final thoughts, and then we'll go around the horn.
Yeah, it's I mean, what more is there to say about this movie other than like it's fucking awesome? Like,
whoa!
Again, I think I want to echo what Brent says. Like, I didn't expect it to be this like moved by a movie like with Bill and Ted in it, which is kind of, you know, let alone a third movie like, you know, 28 years later. Like, it's insane to get a flick like this and then have it be really good, and then to outdo its, you know, predecessors like on a giant scale. Like, it's insane. And, you know, because of, you know, the obvious, you know, dark times are in and shit, it was an awesome, like, you know, basically like bright light. It's a bright movie in a dark time, I guess, in a way. It's awesome. Like, I don't think they will make a third one. I don't think that's the intention of this movie. It's just,
this is
I don't
the
think
third
it's
one.
Oh yeah, my bad. I don't think they'll make like a fourth one. Like, I don't think the intention was to franchise it. Like, no, I don't think it was, you know, it's not meant to, you know, they're not meant to go the Disney route or the Star, you know, the Marvel route or whatever. But if they do make another one, I do want to, you know, I kind of want it focused on Billy and Thea, you know, that would be the most obvious choice. But if this is just the end, then I think it is, because when you watch the after credit scene, it kind of it's a nice little dot on the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a fucking awesome movie. It's probably my favorite movie of this year. So, wow. And I haven't seen a whole lot of new shit. I mean, yeah, we've seen New Mutants. I've seen Tenet, shit, and I like this. I've seen Mulan, and I think Bill and Ted is at the top.
Damn.
Wow. Andrew, what did you think about this movie?
Yeah, it's the same thing that John said. I think it gave me a deeper appreciation of the trilogy as a whole. I think the character development, the fact that they still had somewhere to go with these characters and to revisit them almost in real time, like what would they be doing now, type of thing, is really interesting. And the daughters again stole the show, and it was really cool to get a bunch of, you know, nostalgic callbacks to seeing, you know, Rufus, his hologram, or, you know, Station, and you know, stuff like that, or Death, the biggest one of all. Mm-hmm. But also, you know, seeing on how fun and bubbly it was, I think that's the reason I want more, and I want there to be more, because I want this feeling forever, I guess, because it really shows you the power of movies that movies still have. There's every reason to feel sad in this world right now, but, you know, something like this, it just kind of flips it on its head, and you can't, you know, help feel really, really good after watching it.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that same sentiment. I think I think we're all kind of like starving for stuff like this. I think like we live in a very, especially now, like very dark, cynical times, and I think like Bill and Ted, I think, should represent something that people strive to do more of, especially once like quarantining lifts and stuff like that. It's just like a push for like a more sincere kind of like style of storytelling and like characters and stuff. Because it's like I think people connect more with that, and I think that there's like sometimes I feel like this is more of a thing of the past now, at least I hope, but I think there's a pushback to like stuff like that because it's cheesy or something, or it's corny. But it's like, I think we just like need to get over that shit and just like embrace like a couple of buds, a couple of good friends who like, I think that's like low key one of my favorite things about this movie is that like there was no version of not their alternate selves, their future selves where they weren't together. Mm-hmm. And that like realizing that made me really emotional. It's like these guys are always going to be in each other's lives. Like that's how good of friends they are.
And on their deathbeds, right?
Yeah. Pretty much they're like, their wives are like hanging out, but they're like still just like right there with each other. And it was really great. And I just wanted to mention too about the finale. I think it was really clever the way that they made it. Because the way that I think Bill and Ted 1 and 2 both reference the fact that they're going to make a song that like unites the world, right? Or is that introduced in the second one? I'm forgetting at this point. I can't remember.
In the first one, it's them. Oh shit! I totally forgot what it was. John, what is it?
The first one, it's just implied that they that the future society, like it's a utopian society that basically got looks up to them and their music basically, and then I think that's it. The second one is kind of expanded upon by thinking it's the same society, like future society, but it's like, ideals were learned from music from Bill and Ted, which, the motto was like, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Like that's the whole like way of life in the future. I think they hint at some sort of like, one day they're going to save the world. I think that's what maybe possibly was used. Like the phrase was used. It wasn't until I think this movie that they kind of, actually put some specificity to it.
Made it more explicit. Yeah, I think it's really clever, I think, how they came about that, because it's like, even when this movie starts and it's like, there's a song that the song is going to save the world, you're kind of wondering like how that's going to work. And then when all the pieces start coming together, reality is like, going to shit. And then they, like, everybody in the world has instruments and everybody's like jamming out at the same time. It's it's just, I think it was just a really clever way to figure that out. And also I think that's something I think that really hits right now, just like a whole bunch of fucking people, just like no social distancing, no anything like that. They're all just hanging out next to each other, like jamming, having a good time, making music. And it saves the world, saves reality. So I think that's like part of why the movie hit so hard, I think. And it's really, really fun to watch that right now.
Yeah, it's in the words of Bill and Ted, a most triumphant movie. Mm-hmm. It is so, I don't even want to say kind, because I feel like for some reason that has some kind of goofy connotation, but it really shouldn't. This movie treads the line so well. I think John brought up earlier how this could have easily been a parody, and Andrew brought up how everything was stacked against this to be just a silly, broad comedy with dumb jokes. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being something really heartfelt. But I feel like that's also something to do with all of these people returning to something that is so important to them and realizing that they need to pass it on in a weird way. And I feel like, we talked about the daughters of Bill and Ted, but also Kristen Schaal is the daughter of George Carlin's character. And there's something about that generational thing. And there's even something deeper about just the fact that, the future is bright and there is a better version of this. No matter how bleak it may feel, is bleak as hell in this movie or 2020. And I feel like that there's something really special about it. I mean, it's literally all of the world in every time coming together to save itself. Something that is so far from reality right now, but just feels so different, but uplifting. It even ends in the credits with people playing music in all these different places in the world, and they look like real people. I don't know. They could all be actors.
They are, yeah. There's the guy in the electronic wheelchair who's in one scene retweeted like a clip of that, and he's like, I will forever be like remembered by Bill and Ted. Like they put me in the movie, and like, so I think those are just random people. They would have loved a memo, would have loved to try and be in that.
Yeah, same here. I was like, I wish I would have known shit was going on. Yeah. I would have like did some air guitar or some shit.
Yeah, they actually broke a Guinness World Record by having the most people air guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, virtually.
That's so cool.
That's so cool. But yeah, I think those are all reasons. I feel like we need to stop thinking about, just as a movie going audience, to stop thinking about positive movies as being corny or being bad. Because if not, we will just keep getting, and I don't mind them. I love movies. I love horror movies and stuff. But we're just going to keep getting darker, more real, more depressing films. And sometimes I just like to enjoy movies. And I feel like this is everything that I like in a movie. Even if you're not a fan of Bill and Ted, you will enjoy this film. And if you are, you're going to really enjoy all of the little details that are included. But that's it for Bill and Ted Face the Music. We might time travel back and re-record this podcast again and again until we get it perfect enough to save the world.
Is this going to save 2020?
This
That's
podcast,
the question, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Jury's out, I guess.
Maybe too sentimental. It's probably our kids that are going to save it.
It probably is. Probably is.
One would hope.
Let's talk about my favorite part of the show, plugs.
Gotta love them.
Really, this is all just an opener so we can plug our things.
Like your butt.
Like my butt.
Yeah.
Brent, what do you have to plug?
Wow, Delphin is okay. He's pointing the camera at a drawer. He's pulling out. Wow, he's pulling out a butt plug. Okay, he's just going to do this live on Zoom. Yeah, hope you guys are on that Patreon feed because this is video.
What streaming service is branded on this butt plug?
It looks like a green Hulu official. I didn't even know they sold those. Did you make that? Did you get a gel mold and make that?
It's called swag. Swag for the company.
It was in the swag bag. It's in the swag bag. That's a big
welcome. Yeah, it's in the welcome swag bag.
It's a big one.
Looks custom, huge. Actually. Yeah, definitely.
John and Andrew, y'all are getting one too. Lightly used, baby.
Lightly used. You got to break it in. That's what a lot of people don't know.
I'm doing this for y'all.
I got a thing to plug. I got a couple things actually. Director Showdown is a podcast that my buddy Adam and I do. We I guess by the time you hear this, we ought to be doing the next season. I might as well announce it here. It'll probably be old news, I guess, when people hear this. But we're doing David Lean and Kurosawa for our next season. So there's a couple of throwback directors, but we're excited about it. Right now, we just finished up. Oh, Jesus. John, what did we finish up? Why am I blanking on this?
Edgar Wright versus...
Taika Waititi. Jesus Christ.
There you go.
We haven't recorded in a while, clearly. But yeah, and then we also did Gotti, and then we're going to do Tenet. That's probably all up now. Gotti. Delphin, you don't know Gotti?
Yeah, his face was confused there. Gotti.
He's New York. He's the city. Or no, it's his city. It's his city.
Why are you doing that?
Because we hate ourselves and we want to feel terrible sometimes. Listen to Director Showdown. Also listen to Homecoming. It's my old pop punk band. We put out a full-length album pretty recently. It's on Spotify. It's self-titled. Go jam that. I think it's came out pretty good. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
Andrew, what do you have to plug? Andrew?
So, I appreciate Brent plugging music because that's what this episode's about, the music.
Figured, what better time? Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I want to plug music also. Listen to a good album.
Yeah.
S&M 2 by Metallica?
Yeah, John said BDSM too. But no, I would usually plug my job here, but I think again, COVID is still upon us and it's the silent killer. So everyone keep washing their hands, wearing masks, social distancing, all that.
Andrew, next week is Black Friday. Can I get my things at your shop?
I think for sure you want to try to order online.
They're better deals anyway. Apparently.
Yeah. And
you have an anti-plug. You don't see that too often.
Just stay safe.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. John, what do you have to plug? Thanksgiving is next week. How exciting.
Yes, plug your stomach full of food next week. That'd be awesome. Obviously, listen to Director Showdown. You might find some really cool guests there this next season and last season too. It's going to be pretty awesome. Also, watch. I want to give a shout out to Cover Stories, the Cover Stories podcast on the Hatchet Network. It was actually really cool.
Hatchet?
Yeah. I actually was on an episode recently. I'm not sure. It should probably be out by then. If not, then it's forthcoming. We talked about third wave ska in the late 2000s. Some of it was here in San Antonio that we talked about, like the San Antonio ska scene here, which is a giant part of my musical history. So you should definitely check that podcast out. I know Brent's been on that podcast as well too. We're talking.
Yeah, it was fun.
Mad World.
Mad World. Yeah, it's a good podcast.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. And then obviously, go to your. I think we might be starting something really exciting when it comes to Countdown to. Well, both Countdown to Skywalker and Countdown to Infinity should be gearing up for some new.
Oh yeah. You know what? We're probably on episode 4 of The Mandalorian right now.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Mando Mondays will be a thing again. And then we're going to transition into a book club next year for the High Republic, which is gonna be pretty awesome.
I was going to get like a tease plug in, but that's not my place to do that. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for the High Republic era and a book club. We'll probably still be doing Zoom then, I'm sure, in January.
Possibly, yeah. I'm totally down for it. I think we're all going to take. We'll probably talk specifics later because we was like we need to. Some also need to divide about what, because I know there's some like children's books too that are coming out, and I kind of still want to read those.
Hey, they're all children's books, Chief.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, according to Lucas and Freddie Prinze Jr., there it's all for fucking kids.
Oh boy.
And according to Zack Snyder, it's not for kids.
Oh yeah, according to Zack Snyder, Batman and
Star Wars for kids.
Batman and Superman are not for kids, according to Snyder. No.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Stay away. Yeah, exactly. Kids, stay away from your favorite superheroes because Snyder will find you.
Superman's gonna snap your dad's neck.
Yeah, Snapper Man. That S stands for Snapper Man. And then go. You can get all this cool stuff at patreon.com/DelvinPod, which you'll get some exclusive stuff there. You'll see some videos of said recordings that we're going through right now. You'll see. You'll hear some cool trivia games that you won't hear anywhere else, and we might even say hi to you on social media.
Yeah. I just realized looking at the calendar that we have a new president maybe right now. Who knows? But this is exciting. We're like Bill and Ted right now.
I would say hopefully. Everyone's want to say hopefully we have a new president.
We're traveling to the future via podcast. How exciting. Well, go to patreon.com/DelfinPod, support the pod. You can go to tpublic.com and support the pod there as well. And listen to Countdown to Infinity and Avengers podcast and all of our other Delphin Pod shows as well. But Brent, thanks so much for being on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this episode, man. I'm really glad I got to talk about this movie because, it's up there for one of my favorites of the year. I fucking loved it. It's great. So,
Woo. Yeah, it's a nice break for us. We have literally been watching horror movies for weeks. And
boy. Yeah.
We're like comparing and talking about blood. What has better blood squirts?
I love the blood squirts. Those are my favorite things in horror films.
When you get the blood squirts,
All right, y'all. I am done.
All right, later, guys.
See ya.